Cenk. And look at this, Richard Wolffe in studio.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing, Richard?
Good to be here with you.
Good to be
person.
Here. That's right. We've interviewed Richard approximately 187 times, but it's good to do it in person. You're out here for your book. The book is called Revival, The Struggle for Survival Inside the Obama White House. Here it is. Boom. Richard, let's get started right away on it. Number one, how many millions of hours did you spend interviewing Obama and people inside the White House?
Gazillions of hours, not millions. I embedded myself in there for 2 months at the start of the year. The idea was a month in the life. Gibbs said, Robert Gibbs, who else? Why don't you do, because he said, well, how are you going to choose this month? What are you going to do? And I said, well, you got a quiet month? No, there are no quiet months. So he said, okay, let's do this period in January. We'll be pivoting towards the election, the midterms, and healthcare will be over. And in fact, it wasn't. It was Massachusetts to healthcare being done, but it's not just healthcare, it's national security and everything else. So I made a real pain of myself in this period, as I often do. And you know, the result is this canvas for these bigger themes that we're all talking about now and they were talking about then, which is how on earth do you get out of this hole? Never mind how'd you get into it.
Right. And of course you covered the Obama election and wrote about that as well, so they're very familiar with you.
Right.
So now you say in the book that it breaks down into two camps, the Revivalists and the Survivalists.
Yep.
All right. Quickly tell us what those two camps mean.
Essentially, these are people disagreeing about whether you should campaign or govern and what to do with that campaign in 2008. So the Revivalists are the ones who want to revive the campaign as a way to reviving their fortunes. And the Survivalists are saying, you just do what it takes to get the stuff done in Washington. Do the deals, put the points on the boards, and get out.
So, perfect example of the Survivalists is Rahm Emanuel.
Rahm Emanuel, Pete Rouse, though. Very different kind of character, but chief of staff, two chiefs of staff here, and they both are in that camp of what they call the realists. I think if you call them realists, it kind of skews it, but anyway.
Right, I agree with you. So then let's get to the heart of it, because today, you know, we were discussing on the show, we have, last week, we have for a long time, what's at the heart of Obama, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's got his foot in both camps.
Right, so which camp is he in? Which way is he going to go? What makes him tick? Friday, I went nuts because they're going to do this deal, which, you know, as you know, on election night, we talked and I said I knew they were going to do the deal, but they did it, and it's still frustrating. 67% of the country says no tax cuts for the rich, and Obama's still going to give it to the Republicans. And then during the weekend, Bill Maher, Frank Rich, Paul Krugman, Robert Kuttner, just everybody comes out. And then this morning on MSNBC, where you and I work, Morning Joe comes out and says, this is crazy. This is weakness, right? And he's giving the Republicans everything. So first question is, given that context, do you think the people inside the White House get that they're being seen as incredibly weak now?
Of course they hear this stuff. Yeah, absolutely. And does it trouble them? Yeah. They don't want to have to annoy their base. On the other hand, they've got a couple of other things they've got to do. Unemployment benefits are really important. Republicans are saying no unemployment benefits. Well, who do Democrats stand for? If Republicans stand for tax cuts, that's all they're put on earth for. What are Democrats put on earth for? Well, it's to care for those people who are at the very rough end of this rough economy. And so getting unemployment benefits is not a minor thing. Is that worth the compromise? Is that worth kicking this down the road for 2 years? Because remember, he's going to have to debate this whole thing all over again in 2012. So he knows, he's not stupid, he can work out what the calendar looks like. He knows that he's going to have to make this argument, but he'll be making it in an economy at a time when unemployment will be lower and the economy will be stronger. And
he thinks and he hopes.
It will be. Everyone. You talk to conservative economists, you talk to...
Bernanke said last night 4 to 5 years at this rate of unemployment, roughly.
Well, no, he said 4 to 5 years for unemployment to come down to a more normal level of unemployment. Yet it will still be high by their official projections.
Richard, here's what I'm not buying, though. Look, if they don't fight now, and they say, oh, we'd love to fight, well, it's like, can I pay you for this burger on Tuesday, right? So they're going to fight 2 years from now? No, they're not. They're never going to fight, okay? It's not in his nature. It's no drama Obama. And that is his downfall. That's his Achilles heel. He hates conflict. He's going to run from all these fights. Tell me why I'm wrong.
If he was going to run from conflict, do you think he'd have battled Hillary Clinton, everyone else in the field, John McCain? Do you think he'd have staked his presidency on healthcare? Because he did risk his presidency on healthcare. Do you think he'd have gone for an $800 billion Recovery Act? This is a guy who's actually repeatedly had people like Rahm, even people like Axelrod say, don't do this stuff. It's going to hurt you.
But
and
see,
he's
that's
still
my issue.
taken those things on.
No.
You can say that healthcare wasn't big enough, but he never promised a public option. You know, he delivered what he said he would do, and they weren't small things. So tax cuts in this situation, you think he wants to sign the tax cuts for these people making more than $250 a year? No.
No, but Richard, it makes no sense. Look, I'd love to address all those point by point. Of course, we don't have time for all that, right? But let's stay here because this is as good an example as any, right? You got 67% of the country behind you saying we don't want tax cuts for the rich. You got another internal report that's circulating on the Hill saying 77% say if you pay off the deficit with that money instead, we'd prefer that. I mean, these are overwhelming numbers. I mean, it goes to all the issues you mentioned. Public option, over 70%. He's handed these huge things. If you don't fight when you got 70% of the people behind you, when do you fight? I mean, so he ran for president. Sure, he ran against Hillary Clinton. That was courageous. I'll give him that, okay? Then John McCain was next. He's running for president. So what? Okay?
Just because he had to?
I mean, he's running for president. He's got to run against somebody. But when it comes to conflict, I've got to resolve this. His gut instinct is always to compromise. Always. And so when he does, and the other side never compromises, how do you resolve that conflict? By giving in to them. I mean, you don't think that's happened over the last 2 years? You don't think that's happening in this case with this situation?
This White House wanted the Democrats in Congress to take this vote on the middle-class tax cut 2 months ago. Democrats wimped out of it. They wimped out of it. They did not want to do this. They didn't want to fight 2010.
Is that true?
Absolutely true.
The White House wanted to do it?
The
White
White House wanted to go. Well, it makes no sense to leave it to the point where the Republicans can run out the clock and they can point the finger at Democrats and the White House and say, you were the guys who raised taxes. It makes no sense. 2010 could have been fought on this very issue. They could have gone through and said, we're going to jam that middle-class tax cut through and split this up. Republicans have wised up to the notion of splitting up the taxes, and that's what is the problem here. The Democrats opened up all their cards and said, here they are. You know, they wimped out on it, all of them, collectively.
Well, look, isn't that part of the problem that whenever the blue dog Democrats or the conservative Democrats say, oh, no, I'm scared of the Republicans, I don't want to fight them on that, they're going to say, I'm doing tax increases. And when in healthcare, we don't want the public option.
Well,
a lot of times the conservative.
But
that's the problem, Richard. There was never going to be any of the things we wanted. But we elected a guy for change,
the guy never
and he gave us 5%.
The guy never said public option. Nobody ever said public option.
There's a clip of him saying public option in the election, okay? But Richard, that's not the point. It's not the point.
That is the point.
No, because the point is, look, if you've got this huge majority of the country on that issue behind you if you want to. The real thing to try for is a single payer, right? And you don't get single payer, and so then maybe you compromise because it didn't change the system, Richard. I'm telling you that's what the heart of it is. That's why people don't get when we say public option, it's symbolic. Are we going to be the only choice we have is getting health care from the private industry, or do we have a second choice? If we don't have a second choice, then the system is exactly the same. He just covered more people within the system, which is a good thing.
In their estimates, 30 million uninsured people. That's not a just.
You know the recent estimate?
That's not a just.
The recent estimate is that now there's 58 million uninsured, right? So already we're 28 million behind because we didn't change the system. Nothing he does ever changes the system. So I mean, look, when you look at this thing here, if he doesn't fight on this, so you're saying the Democrats wouldn't let him fight. Now the Democrats are pushing him to fight. A lot of them are, right? You're hearing Schumer, you're hearing Harkin, you're hearing the House Democrats. Maybe that's wrong, though, but that's why we talk to you. So, I mean, are they full of it? If secretly they're telling Obama, don't fight?
That's great for them to say, let's have the fight now, after the election. Don't you want to go into the election saying this is what Democrats stand for? This is where the bright line is between us? I mean, it's great to do this right now.
And he's the president. Why couldn't he say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to do what Evan Bayh wants. I don't give a damn about Evan Bayh. I'm the president of the United States. I'm the leader, and I'm telling you this is where we're going.
There is this system where the congressional leaders can do what the hell they like, and they have done repeatedly. And they don't even agree.
Doesn't mean he can't push for it.
He spent most of the first year trying to get the House and the Senate Democrats to talk to each other and to agree on anything because they couldn't stand each other and didn't trust each other. That was the story of healthcare. And was that a winning position for him? For a Democratic president to talk exclusively to Democrats who didn't agree with each other? What a mess. That's not a winning strategy. And by the way, to go into an election saying, well, we're bad, you hate us, but the other side are even worse, that doesn't work either. They actually had to have gone into this tax debate, which they knew was coming, and say, this is what we Democrats stand for. They couldn't even agree.
No, but that's, okay, and so that goes to the heart of it.
Nancy Pelosi, the progressive heroine here, is like, you know, why is she caving to the Blue Dogs as well? Because they didn't win. The people who voted no on healthcare didn't win either.
So, Richard, last question.
I gotta go.
Yeah. So, when is he going to make that case? I mean, that's part and parcel of the whole complaint, right? Because you're right. Why aren't you saying, hey, listen, this is what the Democratic Party stands for? Everybody knows what the Republicans stand for: limited government, small taxes. When is Obama going to come out and make a stand and say, damn it, this is what I stand for?
You don't think unemployment benefit was saying, this is what I stand for?
Oh, absolutely not, because you could have that fight. You say, hey, you know what? The Republicans filibustered it, and I'm coming for him.
They already
but
said,
he never says that.
What does that mean? What does that mean? I'm coming for them?
That means I'm going to make my case to the American people, and I'm going to make them take that vote. And if they're on the other side, they're going to lose.
Meanwhile, long-term unemployed people don't have their benefits.
But then the Republicans can hold them hostage forever.
Who loses?
No, but then the Republicans say, oh, I'm going to keep crushing people until you give me what you want, what I want, and then he has to keep saying yes and yes and yes.
What do you care about, beating Republicans or helping the long-term unemployed?
No, long-term. If you give up on the short-term every time because you're worried they're holding him hostage, you got to win long-term.
Cenk, why are people Democrats? Why are you a progressive? If it's not to help long-term unemployed people who are going to lose $300 a week right now, then what the hell is this about? It's just a game.
No, but
you want to win at all costs.
They can hold them hostage forever. Then every time they turn around and go, oh no, hey, you look, I'm going to crush the unemployed unless you give in to my demands. No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to crush you. I'm going to come and I'm going to beat you and I'm going to say, here, these Republicans are never going to help the little guy. They're for the millionaires and the billionaires. This is what he should have taken his stand on.
Great. Republicans look bad. Democrats feel self-righteous. And the poor, long-term unemployed are screwed.
No, they win in the long run. They win in the long run.
Say that to someone who needs $300.
Okay, so but then you're going to give in on every issue. That's my sense of it. But Richard's got to go. The book is called Revival, The Struggle for Survival Inside the Obama White House. And he's spoken to the people there. And you get a great sense of what's going on inside the White House if you read the book. Thank you so much.
That's why I love coming on.
All right.
See ya.
All right, guys. Young Turks.